Hi, it's Nicholas Thompson. I'm CEO of The Atlantic, and this is The Most Interesting Thing in AI, a podcast produced by Rethink, The Atlantic's creative marketing studio, in collaboration with PwC, a leader in helping organizations use AI. This is our final episode of the season, and I'm so excited to introduce today's guest. His name is Bill Gross. He is a serial entrepreneur. He is a little bit of a mad scientist, brilliant inventor. He runs Idealab, tons and tons of companies, always pointed at the right thing, whether it's climate change, getting us to the moon, or figuring out all kinds of more efficient engines. In any case, Bill's current project right now is trying to solve the problem of how to compensate creators in the age of AI. How can there be some fair exchange of value between these AI companies that are now worth hundreds of billions of dollars and the creators, the musicians, the artists, the media companies whose data was kind of taken, often secretly? How can there be a fair exchange of value between these two parties? And Bill approached this, saw an ethical injustice, and instead of just wanting to yell at it, he wanted to solve it. So we're going to talk about what he's planning to do and how he's built his company. Before we dive in, I should disclose three things. One, I have a personal stake in the matter, obviously. I am a media executive. It really matters to me that places like The Atlantic get compensated for the work that was used to build AI. Second, I'm on the board of Bill's company, ProRata. And third, The Atlantic has a partnership with ProRata. So Bill and I work closely together, always love our chats, and come away feeling excited. So with that in mind, here's my conversation with Bill Gross. Bill Gross, it's a pleasure to be here with you.
Thank you so much, Nick.
Bill, I want to spend most of this conversation talking about AI, talking about copyright, talking about ProRata. I think it's one of the most important companies in AI today. But I want to start with you because you've always been an inventor, an entrepreneur. So your first company was when you were 11 or 12 and you were selling candy?
Well, believe it or not, the story of selling candy actually connects pretty closely to what I'm doing today.
Really?
At ProRata. You'll hear why. So I grew up in the San Fernando Valley in Los Angeles, and I lived next to a medical center that sold candy bars for a dime. And I went to the Save On drugstores, now CVS, and they were selling candy bars 3 for $0.25. So I did the math and said, for 8 1/3 cents, I can buy candy bars and I can sell them to my friends for 9 cents, 1 cent undercutting the student store at school and also the pharmacy next door, making a whopping 2/3 cent. So it wasn't buy low, sell high. It was buy low, sell maybe a little bit.
But that's still like what, 9% margins? I mean, that's pretty good. It's pretty good. If you sell in bulk, you're good.
And I still made a couple $100 selling candy bars over the next 2 years. And then I took woodshop in school and I learned how to make things with my hands. And all of a sudden I went from buy low, sell a little bit higher to taking $10 of materials and turning it into $50 of value by fabricating things.
Yeah.
And then the energy crisis hit, 1973 energy crisis. And I started studying all about solar energy and renewable energy. And I started writing plans for how to make solar devices and sold them in the back of Popular Science magazine. And that was incredible because I could duplicate the plans for 25 cents and sell them for $4. And that was my first taste of intellectual property. I didn't even know what the term intellectual property was.
And then tell me about your second company, which was, I believe, selling stereo speakers while you were an undergraduate.
So I get to Caltech for college, and I'm using my solar business to pay my way through college.
Really?
My $4 plans. Yeah, I sold 10,000 of those plans. So that's how I paid my way through college. Oh my God. Yeah. I show up as a freshman. The seniors had these incredible stereos. I wanted one, and I couldn't afford that. But someone said, there's a student shop you can join for $5 a term, and Bill, you're good at woodworking. Yeah. Build your own speakers. And I said, well, I don't know how to build a speaker, not how to build a box. I don't know anything about sound. Oh, Bill, you can take courses. There's double E courses in electrical engineering and there's mechanical engineering courses. So I started taking all the engineering courses to learn about it. And I built a pair of speakers. I actually got a patent on a design. I ended up selling them to all the students on campus at cost because I was using the student shop, but at a profit to the surrounding neighborhood. To all the wealthy people in San Marino, I sold stereo equipment and climbed under their houses and installed systems in their home. I opened up a stereo store after I graduate where I'm manufacturing the loudspeakers in the basement, selling them on the retail floor.
And it's just you, or do you have like,
well, at this point I had
hired
about 10
100 people off Craigslist?
Yeah, no, so I hired Caltech students to run table saws and beat weights to glue wood together and everything. And they were all my friends. It was incredible. Yeah. But then the guy from the Yellow Pages shows up at my store. This is 1980. I've got my little stereo store that I'm paying $1,500 a month rent for, which was crazy for me to be doing that, but I was making it work.
Yeah.
And he says, would you like an ad in the Yellow Pages? I go, sure, I'd love an ad in the Yellow Pages. He said, how big an ad would you like? I said, well, I'd like one of those big full page ones. He goes, well, that's $9,600 a month. $9,600 a month? Are you kidding me? And he said, well, you have to pay for those. I said, I didn't know people paid for those. I thought those were editorially created. I thought that you just judged the business, and if you thought it was a good business, you'd give them a bigger ad. Oh, no. It's $4,800 for half a page, $9,600 for a full page per month. I said, I'll take out a quarter page ad and I'll give it a try. And I did that. It was a huge risk for me. It worked like crazy. And I saw that when people look up stereo, they look up plumber, they have high intent to go find a plumber.
Right.
So having a big ad at that point is a really, really good moment. Stereo business took off. Then I started a software business. Lotus acquired it. I sold a stereo store to my friends who were running it. And now I have a whole segue into software, learning about educational software.
Why don't we talk about how you got the insight to create search advertising, and tell us the story about how you almost got booed off the TED stage?
Okay. It's 1998. I'm running Idealab. I have 20 companies, and they're all trying to get banner ads on the web or buy positions at AOL.
Yep.
And then I'm seeing the quality of search declining. At the time, you had Excite, Lycos, AltaVista, Yahoo as search engines. And at the very beginning, their quality was very high because no one was spamming or gaming them to try and get in there. But then as people realized how valuable traffic was, everybody was tricking them.
Right.
Putting white text on white, putting the same word 100 times on your page, any trick to try and show up higher in the search engines.
It'd be like if the Yellow Pages became infinitely large and it could figure out a way to game it.
And especially because the search engines weren't trying to stop the gaming because they didn't know what was going on. It just took off rampantly. So in 1998, I tried to figure out a way. How could we stop this? How could we get the spam out of search engines? And I tried everything.
Because you're worried about your companies. You're running 20 companies and they're all trying to advertise, and the advertising's not working because there's so much spam in the search engines.
Yes. And the only way to buy traffic was to go pay Yahoo $5 million to be on the homepage, or go pay AOL $3 million to be in the garden section.
Yeah.
And you have no idea what you're going to get. And I was telling all my companies, what you need to do is look for your effectiveness by measuring whatever you buy on advertising, measure how many clicks you get, divide, and figure out your effective cost per click.
Right.
And that was good advice I was giving to the CEOs. So now I'm looking at the search quality going down. I'm looking at the whole idea of cost per click. That's the metric you should be looking at. And then it hit me. This should be like a Yellow Pages.
Right.
We should charge for this. The more you pay, the higher up you should be. Just like when that guy offered me the $9,600 a month ad. If you want to bid on first place, you can bid on first place. And why did it work in the Yellow Pages? Because if you bid on a full page ad and you had lousy service, you would go out of business.
Right.
So it was a self-correcting system using money to make it correct. And when I first came up with the idea, everybody poo-pooed it. Even inside of our company, people said, you can't let people pay to be in search results. They're authentic. And I said, but they're not authentic. They're being gamed right now. Mm-hmm. This is a different kind of system that will be more pure, actually. It will actually help users. I tried convincing people, but to no avail. But I got people to join the company to go start this effort. We called it GoTo.com. I showed it on stage at TED in 1998. And yes, people actually booed and hissed. The cover of the Wall Street Journal that day said, Bill Gross has a new company, and Yahoo, quote, we will never, ever put paid results in our search results, to try and diss the idea. That's how bad they thought the idea was.
I was 22 years old and then I was in college. I remember thinking this is unethical, like ads and search results. Like, come on, give me a break. That's terrible. Not recognizing, of course, how inauthentic they were.
Exactly. So because I saw they were inauthentic, because I thought this would actually correct it, I did one critical thing that people have not done since, is I put the cost per click in the ad to be very transparent about what was going on. So at the bottom of every ad, it said cost to advertiser, 21 cents a click. Cost to advertiser, 20 cents a click. Yeah. I was doing that for two reasons. One, to be transparent, but two, so advertisers could see how much other people were paying so they could bid above it. I really wanted to make it that transparent.
Right.
We advertised to get people to come to GoTo.com. We had bus stop ads and radio ads and everything. And we were giving really, really good results on commerce related terms. If you were searching for something that was commercial related, the order of results was so good. Basically, price worked as a modifier to get the things in the right order better than any spamming that was going on. So it took off like crazy. We were doing, I think, 100 million in revenues after 1 year. So we went public in only 1 year. Then in about 6 months, another search engine, Metasearch, picked up our results. Then in another 6 months, AOL picked up our results. And then Yahoo did a $100 million deal with us. And then a few years later, Yahoo acquired the company. So they went from, we will never, ever do it,
right,
to this is very important to our business, to we need to own it.
Right. They could have saved $1 billion by just being in favor of it from the get-go.
Exactly.
Right. But then Google comes and it crushes everything, right?
Yes. So Google came out in 2000 with an even better idea, not for the monetization part, but for the quality of search results. And Larry Page came up with PageRank, the PageRank algorithm that used the link strength to direct people to sites. And that was really, really good. And why that was so good was, again, people didn't know how to fake that yet. And I start realizing, boy, this is really great for the non-commercial terms. We should merge with them.
Yeah.
We should combine GoTo and Google. In fact, I jokingly once called it GoToogle, GoTo and Google, to have on the left be all the organic results by the link strength algorithm. On the right, be all the people who are paying who want to bid on that same keyword. So really the thing we invented was bidded keywords, an auction around keywords, similar to the auction around words in a phone book.
But then Google builds a version of your advertising system, right? They do have organic links with PageRank, and then they do have links on the side that companies bid on, and there's an auction with slightly different terms, but similar to yours. Did you sell your IP to Google?
So when we first came up with the idea for these bidded results, we didn't patent it. I thought it was so obvious. We just put it out there. A year later, when we were going public, the bankers said, where are your patents? And we said, we don't have any. And they said, well, you should patent everything. They had shown that on the TED stage in February of 1998, now March 5th of 1999. So it was too late to patent the idea of bidded keywords. But we did patent everything in the background. The way you enter your bids, the way the ranking works, a whole bunch of things that we hadn't shown on stage. And we sued Google for those, and they settled those for $360 million.
And had you patented the key idea, what would you have sold that for?
Yeah. I still never would have thought it was as valuable as it is. Who could have ever thought this would be worth $3 trillion? But the $3 trillion, to be fair, is a huge credit to the incredible execution of Google on so many fronts.
I know, but let's just stay on this question for a second because it's interesting. What's your estimate of what you could have sold that patent for?
Many billions. So we still did great because we sold the company.
Understood.
And I still feel very proud to have invented the actual seminal part.
Right.
Google invented the relevance part, and I invented the monetization part.
More with Bill Gross after the break. Let's come to the moment where you decide you're going to get back into the advertising game and you're going to found ProRata. So tell me the lightning strike that led you to where we are.
Well, the lightning strike was New York Times suing OpenAI right around Christmas time of 2023. And I was thinking about how search is changing dramatically because of ChatGPT and how powerful this new revolution is. And by the way, I think it's actually underhyped where we are right now. I mean, there's a lot of talk about
the AI revolution is underhyped.
I think that this is the most unbelievable thing in the history of humanity. I think we will look back at 2025 or this period right here as sort of BC and AD. This is an incredible turning point in human history. But going back to December of 2023, I've been thinking about search, but thinking about, well, I really can't get back into this game. Everybody else is running away with this. I don't have anything new to add.
Yeah.
Even though I love this space and I'm focused on climate and I love that. And I love big, hard challenges, especially technical challenges where there's IP. It's going back to my love of IP back from being a teenager. But then the suit happens and I start thinking about how we really need to do something, not just to protect the IP holders, but to protect democracy, to protect creativity.
Right.
And on December 31st, the idea comes to me.
Because the suit makes it clear to you, you realize, wait a second. This is the first time there's been a big tech platform building an economic model on top of creator content in which there is no fair exchange of value.
Yes. And all the other platforms do have a fair exchange of value. If you think about every other form of digital media, Spotify shares revenue with musicians. It would be illegal and unethical if they didn't. And YouTube shares revenue with creators. And that's made YouTube wildly successful. So this should be exactly the same.
Google sends you traffic. Facebook sends you traffic. Right? There is always a fair exchange of value, except in AI. It is one of the weirder things. In any case, you see this problem, you see the lawsuit, and then?
So then I immediately think, wait a minute. If the problem is that you can't figure out how to share the revenue, maybe we could unscramble the egg of the output of generative AI and figure out an attribution It might not be perfect. It just has to be close.
Right. And this is a moment where the tech companies have said very specifically that problem is unsolvable.
Yes, they say, oh, we can't do it. Even if we wanted to, we can't do it. We have to be able to compete with China. So they have all these excuses, but they're just excuses.
Right.
So on December 31st of 2023, I figure out, I think there would be a way to do the attribution. And if we could patent that, that could be a seminal patent.
And by doing the attribution, what you mean is I ask a question, hey, Google, what is the meaning of life? It gives me an answer. That answer draws on a whole bunch of things, a Wikipedia page, an Atlantic article. You are able to unscramble the answer and determine how much came from Wikipedia, how much came from the Atlantic, how much was inspired by the Bible,
exactly,
or whatever.
And that same thing is doable not only for text, it's also doable for images, for movies, for music, for everything. In fact, it's actually easier for images and music because those are already digitized waveforms that you can actually do similarity comparisons on easier than you can with words. So I call up my patent attorney on December 31st, and I say, we need to meet immediately, early in January. I need something filed by January 4th, by next Friday. And we talk it through. We write down the details of this attribution, and we file it. So even before I went to DLD in Davos that year, I already had filed the patent.
You had filed a patent, but how had you figured out how to solve this unsolvable problem?
I filed the patent on the breaking down of the output into the categories and then using that as a method of compensation. Then I later worked out how to actually do it, the mechanics of how to do it.
And then how did you solve the math problem?
Then it took about 6 months to solve the math problem. So I came back from DLD in Davos, testing the waters if there was interest from publishers, and there was huge interest.
Yeah. I remember you called me and I remember talking to you and you're like, Nick, I figured this thing out. And I was like, no way. Right. Because I had just accepted the notion that it was impossible. Right.
Yes. They were telling you that.
They're like, it's impossible. And you talk to all your smart friends and they, oh, it can't be done. We don't really know what's happening inside the black box. And okay, fine. Explainability is hard. Okay, fine. So I was concentrating on different ways of creating a fair exchange value. I did not think you could solve that math problem.
Yeah. So I had so much enthusiasm for the idea that I said, okay, we're going to do a seed round for this company. We got the CTO, the technical team together. We had $2.5 million in the bank and we started working on it and we came up with a way to do it. And then we were looking at CEO candidates and then I realized this is my passion.
Yeah.
I really want to make this happen.
So you are CEO of Idealab. Idealab has, 100 companies. You running all these different science experiments. You decide that this is more important than climate change, carbon sequestration, everything.
Well, I decided it's more important for a pause in new company creation. So I decided to stop creating new companies. And it's been 2 years now. I haven't started a new company.
Yeah.
Just focused on this because I think this is so important for humanity.
Yeah. Okay. So you commit, you're all in. How do you solve the math problem?
So the way you do it is ironically, maybe not ironically, with an LLM. You use a large language model to read the output of the large language model and break it up into claims and insights. Then you weight them by their frequency in the corpus of documents. So if a claim and insight is very, very common, like 1 + 1 = 2, and 4 million people have said that, that's going to get a very, very low weighting. But if a claim or insight in a document is 1 + 1 = 2, and that came about a little bit after 0 was discovered, and 0 was first discovered, and that whole story came from only one place because only one person talked about that story, that's going to get a lot of uniqueness and get a lot of credit. So what we do is we break all the input documents into claims and insights. We break the output of an LLM into claims and insights, and then we do matching with weighting. And that gives us a relative contribution from each of the documents as to how important they were to the answer.
Let's say we're asking, I don't know, what are Pete Hegseth's main accomplishments as Secretary of Defense, right? You ask that question into an LLM. It gives you here 7 answers. You then extract those 7 things as claims. You look at where they have appeared in previous source material.
Yes.
Okay.
So for example, maybe 7 different articles or 100 different articles list his 7 main accomplishments, but maybe one article said, and we think this most recent accomplishment could be a turning point for the administration. If that is featured in the output, then you know it had to come from only that one article.
Now, have you proved that this is correct, right? So theoretically, you could prove it by running 1,000 tests and then basically seeing how much those results depend on one source, then retraining the LLM without that source, and then checking those 100 queries again. Have you done that?
We haven't done that. We haven't done that. Retraining the LLM is a multi-billion-dollar.
But you could do it with a small language model, right? There must be a way to test this, because if I worked at, I don't know, if I worked at one of the big large language model companies and you told me this is how you do it, I'd be like, That's great, Bill. That gives you an approximation, but it's not really accurate.
Yes. My retort to that is the following. Nielsen ratings, which take a sample of people watching TV shows, is not perfect. But as long as the advertisers accept it and accept it as a way of judging how much they should pay, then it's fair. We've done the same thing. We go to our publications and we say, audit our answers and look at your percentages. And do you sign off on these? And if you do, then you decide that it's fair. And then we go to an LLM who might use this technology and say, look, I've got 900 publications who have tested this against their corpus. They sign off on it. Our whole goal is to make it be that we say The Atlantic contributed 49% of an answer, and you feel it's right. It might be 53, it might be 42, but we're close. Mm-hmm. Right now, they're saying it's 0.
Right. They're saying it's 0. They're saying they can't measure it. They're saying they don't care.
We got to be plus or minus 5%. Mm-hmm. And that's what we have to be. And that's what we have to have our publications agree to get the LLMs to agree.
All right. So now let's talk about the business model of ProRata. Let's talk about the products of ProRata, starting with your search engine with Gist. Tell me what it does.
So the very first thing we had to do was make our own search engine using only content from the 900 publications who have agreed to work with us.
Right.
And that way we could show that you can get very good results with an LLM that has content for which explicit permission has been given. No one else has done that. We're the only, what I would say, 100% ethical AI search engine because we don't use any information from anybody who hasn't said, yes, please use this, Bill.
And what is your base model LLM that you're using?
We use a base model open source LLM. Right now it's Llama, but we're only using the LLM for the understanding of the query. We're only answering with RAG from the content that has been explicitly licensed.
So Llama, which used a whole bunch of copyright material without compensation, understands and interprets the query, which you then feed into your data set.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes. In fact, our instructions in our prompts are don't use anything from your foundational model.
Right.
Like it's don't answer from that, which leads to sometimes when you ask a question, we say we don't have an answer for that.
Right. Because the 900 publications haven't written anything about it.
Right. And we'd rather say that than make up a hallucination or make up a lie or steal.
Right.
And that's really important to us. So the purpose of Gist is to show that one, it's possible to answer questions with only licensed material. Two, that we can attribute every answer proportionally. And three, revenue share any revenue that we make according to that formula, sharing 50-50 revenue. So right now the revenue is small. We have tens of thousands of users growing quickly. But then what we want to do is take the same technology and get other LLMs to adopt it. That's really the way we get scale. We're not trying to build a consumer brand. We're trying to show that it works. So my whole goal as a company, of course, I'd like to make the company successful. What I'm really trying to do is shift the industry to believing that it's possible, believing that it's fair.
It would be better to build a system with a fair exchange of value. Like build a new Google where like Google benefits from content being created and the publishers benefit because they're links. Now, is it an exactly fair exchange of value? Who knows? Hotly contested. But I think there's a subset of AI companies that would like to build a system with a fair exchange of value. They just haven't done it because they don't want to lose ground to the others.
I agree with that. Yes. Let's take the YouTube example. When YouTube first came out, people were uploading pirated and illegal content continuously. People were uploading NBC, SNL episodes, and then there would be takedown notices from NBC immediately, and Google would take them down. There'd be another upload from Universal, and then they would call them and take it down. And that was going on for a number of months. And then finally, YouTube said, well, what about if we share revenue with you? And then all of a sudden, everybody said, well, take my whole catalog.
Right.
And then, of course, YouTube creator economy took off too, only because they share revenue. There'd be no creator economy if there was no economy part. Right. So YouTube is worth $500 billion now. It's almost double the size of Netflix. So sharing revenue actually makes things flourish. So I think that some of the companies, the more enlightened ones, do feel that that has to happen and that will actually make their business flourish. They just don't want to be the only one doing it because that would disadvantage them. So I think there has to be some kind of movement to pressure them to all adopt it.
And there's no friction to just stealing, right? Like it is very easy to do it at scale. Let's take books for an example. There are all of these databases that exist of all the books in the world chopped up, and you can just feed them into a large language model. And so there's no friction at all to just embedding everything. And in fact, another advantage is they can hide it all, right? They don't disclose what they've trained on. There's no legislation that says you have to show what you trained on. And so they can kind of get away with it very easily.
I think they'll only be able to get away with it for a little bit longer. I think it takes pressure from all kinds to get the industry to shift. So here's what I think will happen. Legal pressure, some more lawsuits have to win. I don't know if they will or not. New York Times is in discovery phase and they're going ahead with their lawsuit. We'll see what happens.
They might win and they might settle too.
Governments, maybe in Europe, might make more of a move than in the U.S. The U.S. is probably not going to do something.
You don't think?
Not.
Current administration does not seem wholly on board with the
but something might happen in Europe that would change things. And then competitive pressure. It could be Microsoft, could be Amazon. Someone could decide to do that. It could be Apple.
So A, pressure comes from lawsuits. B, pressure comes from European regulators. C, it could potentially come from competitive markets.
And then finally, quality of results. If you're training on synthetic data and someone else has real data and the real data has better results, that will put competitive pressure.
There are a couple of other levers. One would be if there's shame, if you're forced to expose what you trained on, right? And that would be great. I should say at The Atlantic, we've been publishing a series where we show you what's been fed into these models. I wrote a book on the Cold War, The Hawk and the Dove. It's in all these models. It feels kind of gross, like it makes you angry. And so that shame will be an interesting thing. And then, of course, the other thing is if you could make it harder to scrape. So there's pressure from consumers who can vote with their feet and they can say, I'm going to use an ethical model. There's pressure from regulators, and then you get pressure from all of these other companies, and then pressure from the courts.
Yep.
So something like that happens and the dynamics change. What happens to your company when that happens?
Well, I'm just hoping to make the world shift. However, if companies do decide to attribute their content and share revenue, I would like them to look at our technology as a way to maybe help them do it. We would like to license that for a very fair, low price, like a Visa card, MasterCard kind of fee, like 1% or 2%. But I'm open. I just want them to use it. I just want them to do it.
Right. Let's say I create a new publication, and that publication writes stories with, I've got 3 humans, but we have an army of AI agents, and we write all these stories, and then we feed that data into ProRata. Should we be compensated, or should we plus the AI we used be compensated?
That's an interesting question. That's a tough one. I really think that our whole goal is to compensate human creators. So human collaboration with AI is tricky, but since there's a human in the loop there, I think that the human should get the credit. So
the human gets the credit, and presumably they've paid their AI licensing fee, but you can imagine the AI company saying, hey, well, I don't know, maybe we're the creator here. I suppose that could then be settled by the courts.
Yeah.
You know, we often talk about like what job should people go into, what jobs will be replaced. I'll give you one job that's not going to be replaced. AI copyright lawyer. Like that and like quantum engineer. Those are tell my kids to go into those things. Let's return to this notion that AI is underhyped. So you're an optimist, correct? How long until there is a company with $1 billion valuation that has 1 employee?
Oh, I think a year.
Oh my God.
I think, well, certainly this decade.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's incredible. The power that you have to build an organization with agents. Think about the way a person orchestrates a company today. A CEO orchestrates a company by building up a senior team. You still have to figure out what to do. That's where the human comes in. But then you can do market research with an AI agent. You can do your marketing campaign with an AI agent. You can do your coding with an AI agent. So I think that the power is just incredible. I think that the goal of the future for everyone is to be problem solvers and figure out what problems to tackle. That's what I think colleges should be teaching people, what high schools should be teaching our children, is think about how to look for problems in the world that you can then use AI to help you solve. And I think that's a great opportunity because it democratizes problem solving.
Do you think that AI has been net negative or net positive for the climate? And then jump 5 years in the future, do you think your answer will change?
I think it has been a net negative so far.
Right. Huge energy use.
Yes.
You know, all of our new energy use is going to data centers, cooling costs, all that.
I think it'll be a net positive in 5 years.
We've worked on inventing all kinds of bonkers stuff that's great for the climate, from like buildings that are carbon neutral because they can store their energy in the way they're constructed, to amazing new forms of solar, to carbon sequestration devices. What is the thing that you have worked on that you think AI will most accelerate that is good for the climate?
I think carbon capture could be one of them. I also think that just inventing new materials, inventing new things to solve problems. I'll give you one example. I was reading about all the rare earth issues, Ukraine, China, rare earth materials. So I just sat down with ChatGPT and said, tell me why rare earths are so important for motors. And I had a whole conversation, and it talked to me about how they're lighter weight. You can make a motor that's lighter for a car. And, what if you don't need transportation? How could you make a motor that's as efficient as an electric motor with rare earths, but without using rare earths? And this whole discussion led to a new invention of a better way to make a motor that doesn't use rare earth materials if it's stationary, if weight and size isn't the problem. Yeah. People are going to use these tools to invent things like that, new ways to do things that you didn't even think about before, just because you have the power of the brain of the whole world at your fingertips.
Right. So they'll do that exercise and then
over and over again.
Right. And then, but you'll break the components down. So you have to build this new tool. There are 100 components in it. You'll figure out how to make each of those components in a cheaper way.
Exactly.
Okay. So how is Idealab going to change? Right. So Idealab is this amazing incubator. How are you repositioning it for a future of AI?
Well, I think that the way I would make companies going forward, when I make new companies again after
ProRata solves the problems it's working on,
is make a list of problems in the world and start having conversations with AI about how practical they could be and how to make them a reality. So it used to be we had to make a prototype, we had to make a patent, we had to build a team, we had to test things out. Now you can do so much of that in AI before you even get going. Almost like you can take problems of the world and rank them by their doability and just tackle them. So I think it's an incredible new frontier.
You are very optimistic, right? There's this funny thing in AI where if you really believe it's going to be transformative, it can turn you into a huge pessimist, right? Explain this optimism.
I'm wildly optimistic about the power of the technology and what we already have and where it's going. I am very pessimistic on inequality. I'm worried that instead of leveling things out for everybody, it'll make the winners win more and losers lose more.
Because there'll be a one-person billion-dollar company.
Well, either that or just we need better wealth distribution. And the way that's heading in our country right now is not for that. So I'm hoping that we see some kind of method to spread this capability to everyone. I imagine a world where anyone with an idea of any kind, a music, song, words, architecture, painting, can express themselves, contribute it to AI, and get royalties if it's appreciated and used. That would be an incredible world. It'd be like a perfect market of ideas. It would tap the brain power of everybody on Earth in a fair way. And AI allows that for the first time because you can't go to a market and search for everybody's idea. But if it's just embedded in the fabric of what we use, that's incredible.
Yeah.
So that's my hope.
That's your hope. Okay. Bill, question I ask every guest. What is an interesting way that you have used AI recently?
Oh, boy. I am blown away by taking a presentation I'm about to give, which I have not yet given, but I rehearse it and I record it and I take the transcript and I hand it to AI and say, do you have any ideas for how to make this presentation more effective? It comes back and says, you make a really good point on slide 4, but I would say you should move that up earlier in the presentation. You make these following analogies. I think you should give an example for each one of them. Like, are you kidding me? How did I not think of that? That's so powerful. And it's even more blows me away because no one has ever seen this presentation before, meaning this was not online.
Right.
These are new words that have never been uttered before. It's stunning what the idea of human knowledge being put into a repository compared to something can make these suggestions.
You know, I trust the terms of service, but it's possible, depending on which AI model you're using, that they are training on it. It's an interesting question because if you said, I'm not going to upload it without being compensated.
Yeah. Well, I think the way it should work is they should ask you, do you want to be compensated? And I say yes. And then they do take it. And I would love that relationship.
Right.
Like,
and then in the future, you may get a certain amount of money from your slide talk.
Exactly. I think that's the world I want to try and create.
Yeah. All right. Well, I'm going to upload the transcript of this conversation. I'm going to opt in and we're going to be paid a ton of money in the future for all these insights. Bill Gross.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. It was a great pleasure to talk with you. This has been The Most Interesting Thing in AI. I'm Nicholas Thompson. If you've enjoyed what you've heard, please rate and review it on the podcast platform of your choice. If you're just tuning in, don't forget to check out the previous episodes in the feed so you can catch up on all the conversations we've had this season. And I just want to say season 3 has been great. I learned so much. I encountered ideas I've never heard before. I got all kinds of terrific, interesting, sometimes provocative, awesome emails from people. So thank you, everybody, for listening. Thank you for engaging. And the stars align. We'll see you back for season 4.